Hello, I'm Mark,
I'm Casey.
And I'm Patrick.
and today we're going to talk a little bit about maybe a Model X and Model S refresh. There's some hints, but first, let's roll that title.
You're watching the Tesla Life Express.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us. Today we want to talk about this article, which we'll link below as we always do. This one from Tesla North. Tesla has hinted at Model S and X refresh for late 2025. Now, this information came from a recent interview on Ride the Lightning podcast, where Lars, is it Morve?
Moravi?
Moravi?
Moravi.
Moravi, who's the VP of Vehicle Engineering, he appeared on the show and talked a little bit about a number of subjects. One of them being, of course, the Cybercab, but Model S and X came up about the redesign that we had seen, of course, with the Plaid and the second row touchscreen that had appeared in that particular refresh. But Ryan from Ride the Lightning had asked him, due to the shrinking volume of sales on the S and the X, is Tesla looking at possibly shelving these vehicles because the volumes are quite low and continue to be lower, but because they're really cannibalized by the 3 and of course the overall winner, the Y.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Casey.
And Cybertruck.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people that might have bought the X in the past for the cool Falcon wing doors. Now, if you want your vehicle to get attention, a Cybertruck is the way to go. So yeah, that's cannibalizing some of those sales too.
Or if you were the utility side, if you didn't need 6 or 7 seats and you wanted to tow, it's a truck with a covered bed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lars had indicated that what they had come up with in their last refresh, it exceeded what they originally planned, he said. But Elon, of course, continues to encourage that team to push even further. And they're looking for improved performance and design of those vehicles. They are on the more expensive end, obviously, because, of course, they were the flagships at that time and continue to be. But Lars had indicated that it's clear that Tesla still have some tricks up their sleeve to continue to drive sales down the road. Now, he, of course, didn't get into what those exact updates will be. But it is interesting because we've talked on this show many times about the dwindling sales of the S and the X and what we thought was going on. Obviously, the two of you are close to the subject because you both have owned or do own X's. And that was the top tier of Tesla just a few years ago.
Yeah.
And we had talked about, are these vehicles being left behind? Musk had always said previously that whenever a new feature would come out, it would appear first for the S and the X. But we've seen that that's not the case. We have seen, for example, there is no ambient lighting in the X or the S at this moment in time.
Oh.
Maybe it's planned to come, but that's a pretty glaring one not to have.
It's had the sockets for it for years now.
Right. So obviously that's not the case that they get all the new features, all the new bells and whistles first. And of course, if you're looking at doling out a large amount of money to buy the upper echelons of Tesla vehicles, you're probably hoping that it does come with the bells and whistles. And maybe that's what Lars is talking about in this interview. Maybe they're planning on not only refreshing maybe the design performance, but they're actually going to incorporate some of the things that have been skipped over at this point. What do you guys think? Is Tesla true to their word here, or do you think that this just might not be as the talk about all the newest bells and whistles didn't actually happen. What do you think is going on here?
I'm glad to see that it's not done yet. That's always a good start. And I was disappointed to see that from where the Cybertruck prototype was to what we got at the price point it was at, um, that we lost some features. It's not considered an S and X tier vehicle. It's considered to be a strong fat Y, and um, like you've got all the doors are propelled by the Model X icebreakers, but a new generation is faster and more performant. But it doesn't have the fully powered doors. Like you can use the X option to just dislodge the door, but you can't make it open, and you can't push the foot on the brake to have it close. And so if they just give it all the stuff that the 3 and Y have got, I mean that's going to be a fine car. But at the same time, so far, what we've seen from the 2012 Model S to today, if you weren't into like looking under the skin and you weren't really into Tesla, you would call everything we've seen so far mid-cycle refreshes, facelifts. The mine
Mm-hmm.
was pre-facelift. It was a 2016 90D right before they fixed the nose so it didn't look like a guppy. And um, but then later that year, they actually made some substantial changes to it. Like they changed the charging architecture. They got the battery ready to not just like conk out on you. Um, Not that the battery was bad, but the 90 was just their weakest chemistry so far. And so the later
Mm-hmm.
90s did better than what they did. And then the X, it's the same thing. It's been basically the same car since it came out in 2018. 2016, sorry. Yes, they did redo the interior, and they are cast now instead of like Sandy Monroe likes to talk about, just the bunch of just sheets of aluminum welded together. But essentially, they're still kind of the same frame. They still have the same, uh, not anywhere near the severity and frequency, but they still have the same issues with like shutter and uh, e- e- from what I hear from the owners, the long-term owners of the 2021 and up, all the same problems that we had with the older models um, that retain were retained because of the basically the same chassis. So it's a little bit wider on the S, but the X is dimensionally the same, and it's just the interior that's different. And yes, if something happened to mine and I were to go get another one, I'd be happy with that car. I had a chance to drive a 2022, 2023. I think it was 22. Loved it. It was a fine evolution, but it wasn't enough to get all of us to go out and say, "Hey, let's upgrade this car because I'm missing out." It's like that's nice, and I'll be looking forward to it. But is it worth getting in debt or taking a big chunk out for those people who buy those kind of cars in cash? Or do I want to lease it? I've been on the edge a couple times. They've been pulling the levers, but they always pull the levers when I'm flat broke and there's no chance to make it happen. Just if they hit me when oh hey, you might be able to get it now. They don't bother with that. So I've kept Tachikoma, and I'm looking forward to at some point doing a Cybertruck. But if they can come out with like say a Cyber SUV, that or Cyber X that's got the ability to tow and it's got seating for like 6 or 7, and maybe a much smaller bed, but still have the roll up tonneau. One way I had described it was just to do like the old S and have the third row be backwards from back to back with the second row, and then you just have a shorter box, but the feet would go there, and then you don't have to worry about any of the dimensions. It just is designed for slightly smaller people like kids, and not like the Model Y, because Model X also has a smaller back seat, but it'll hold smaller adults and large children just fine. If they did that, I think that would be a good compromise for people who don't actually need a truck. And then one thing I suggested was you pull down the tailgate, right? And then on the launch prototype, they had a ramp pull out, right? Don't need the ramp. Um, you pull it back a little bit to get the rest of your 8 foot, 6 foot bed, right? You pull it
Mm-hmm.
back. As you're pulling that back, have a geared assembly that's manually pulled. You're pulling, and it's pushing in steel bars into a part of the chassis. So that way, when you put something on that tailgate, it's not gonna break it. It's dimensionally stable, and then you'd have
So,
like a
so are you telling us, Casey, that you believe that they have to come out with a number of new features in order to make the X and the S relevant?
They're not irrelevant yet, and I think if they one more time keep the same chassis like they're going to do, that um, that what we'll probably see is if for some reason they no longer pass muster, like if they either get too expensive to maintain, or suddenly they don't pass a new crash test regiment that comes out, then we'll see them cancel it, just be done with it. Um, but I was suggesting that if they just use the Cybertruck, they don't have to maintain the X anymore, and for very little
Interesting.
features, for very little cost on these little features, they could get all of the X customers to move over it, unless they needed the doors to do this. If they just wanted the power doors and the 7 seats, it's very little, very cost incremental, and they could make money on it because the Cybertruck is already profitable. And then for
Patrick,
the
what do you think?
That's an interesting idea if they were to move the X over to like the Cybertruck frame and put the X body on top of it. That would be interesting. So okay, so my thoughts on this. Just over a month ago, I wrote an article on my blog there about what to expect from Tesla in 2025. And Casey and I have been going back and forth on this show about whether or not Tesla should continue the S and X. And at one point, they were selling 100,000 a year, and now they're significantly lower. And even looking at 2024, they were down 31, 20% respectively. So I was postulating the question here: should they continue them? And what I would like to see is that they keep them around, and that's what they said they're going to do. These are aspirational vehicles. They're incredible performance of the Model S. If you want the highest performance Tesla you can get, that's the car you're buying, the S performance. And then we've talked about the doors on the X. They're incredible. So I want to see revamps of both of these. And here's what I wrote. Add lush interiors, improved noise dampening, smoother suspension, and a price increase, which they've already done. Since I wrote this, they've bumped the price up by $5,000.
more,
So
because the X qualified for the credit, so that's really 10,000 more. Well, 15,000 more actually. Yeah.
right, and then they can take the things that they did in Juniper and Highland and bring those. So they can bring in the ambient lighting, bring the turn signal stock back. Especially in a high-end vehicle, you don't want to cheap out on that, which they've learned that lesson. I think which is why it's in the new Y. And I think they should do power everything: power seats, power front, power doors. If you want this to be your high-end vehicle, then you do all of that. Like Casey, you mentioned that you can step on the brake and it closes the door. That should be a feature in both the S and the X.
Yeah.
What else did I say? Oh, bring back free supercharging for life and free premium connectivity for life. These are vehicles you're paying a premium on, so they can just bear that cost as part of the sale, and then it's hassle-free. And that's what you want from a luxury vehicle, is you want all the hassle to be taken out.
Right.
The other thing I thought would be cool is if they did Grok integration. And we were talking about how they should roll these things out first in the S and X. Well, yes, you absolutely should. These are your lower volume vehicles. You can try things out there. You can work out the kinks. You can afford to have those customers go through service a couple times under warranty because they're paying a premium price. And so you don't have to, nickel and dime them for service if it's under that warranty period and you were trying something new. Just goodwill, all of that stuff.
Like the video game.
Yeah, exactly. So they could move to the 48-volt system. They could add ether loop, steer-by-wire, and all of these that make the S and X the premier vehicles that they should be for the price tag they have.
Yep. You could try the new battery tech out like you did with my Model S. It didn't work out so well with my Model S as far as it being a strong, cheap chemistry, but how many did they sell?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So this is where they should roll out the new AI systems. AI 5 comes out here first. The light bars come out here first. A new battery chemistry, try it here. It's low volume. If you eventually realize, oh, those packs are failing, we're going to have to swap them all, then you're doing it on 20,000 vehicles instead of 1.8 million vehicles. This is yeah, exactly. So I really think that this is what they should be focused on.
Yeah, really do what Musk said at the beginning, that all these vehicles, these top end vehicles, will be getting all the items, and then it will funnel into the other vehicles.
Exactly.
Like actually perform what he had said was going to happen. And then you would have people knowing, if I want the latest tech, if I want the newest of the new, I've got to get one of these two vehicles, because they're the ones that everything funnels into first, and then from there moves out to the fleet if it's successful or makes sense.
And that's
Exactly.
something legacies have done brilliantly in the past. Is they get you in on an Escort or a Cavalier or a Cimarron, uh, and then you work your way up as you get more success in life, or more, your family grows. You work your way up through the tiers, and,
Right.
and they can afford it because they're charging you more. And just like Patrick said, you try out the new stuff there and then bring it down. That's what Cadillac does. All the new tech starts on their Mac Daddy, and then it comes down to the entry level Cadillac.
Yeah.
Right. I remember the days when you had to buy a luxury vehicle to get airbags or anti-lock brakes. And I was like, what? Are you serious? So, I mean, now that just sounds crazy, but that's how it was for a while.
Yeah, and especially if they come out with these, or when they come out with these newer models that Musk keeps telling us about at the meetings, is that so now you have just an entry level car, $25,000 Tesla or whatever it's going to be, $25,000 to make, and then whatever they're going to sell it for. Then you've got the 3 and Y, and then whatever this new S and X are, just make them worth aspiring to.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's priced a little bit so you can still make a profit on it.
Right.
Good
Yeah. These
idea.
are Halo vehicles. They'll bring people in the door. Even if they end up buying a more practical 3 or Y that fits their budget, they're still aspirational vehicles. That's what Halo vehicles are for, to bring people in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think out there? Do you think that these type of ideas make sense? Do you have another idea that you believe would push the relevancy and sales of the SNX in a better way? If so, what are those things? What do you think? What reasons do you believe that those things would work? We would love to hear from you in the comments, and of course, you can send us a comment. We might even quote you on the show, depending on the comment. But please let us know. Like to hear about it. And while we do that, let's wrap it up. Casey, what do you got for shout outs?
Give us a thumbs up and catch us over on the next show, our live show at the Tesla Life Live on 7 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday.
Very good. Very good. Patrick?
Thanks, everybody. As always, I'm with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at oeva.org, and I blog occasionally at carswithcords.net, where I write about my future free from fossil fuels.
Got it in. Got it in. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. And we thank Lee Moon for the music we use. And we'll get together next time. And together, we will find out what's happening in the Tesla life.
My mouse is gone.